Your glutes are one of the strongest muscle groups you have, and that means that you can crush them with a whole ton of weight, and that's how we can make them stronger. Thing is, you don't always have weight, and that's where an exercise called the single leg hip thrust comes into play. So the single leg hip thrust is a variation on the hip thrust, and our basic hip thrust is going to be one of those exercises where we can move serious weight. It's a great way to isolate our glutes under a ton of load, but if we don't have that load, that's where we want an exercise like the single leg hip thrust. Now we're going to do the exercise with a single leg that's going to instantly change up our stability, and it winds up being the best travel version of the hip thrust and one of the best travel glute exercises that you have. This is an exercise that anybody can do, but it's going to have its most benefit for anybody who's training at home or in the backyard, or if you're just looking for a quick body weight workout. This is a great way to get a little bit of glute work into your workout and also train some stability too. It's also a great move for athletes. We don't always have to use it as a strength move. If you're a little bit more advanced, you can still get something out of this. We can use it as an activation. We can use it as a warm-up. So there are a lot of ways that we can use the single leg hip thrust. Either way, we're gonna wind up really isolating our glutes. We're gonna work this idea of hip extension, which is so good for athleticism, and we're gonna get a little bit more abdominal work than we might think. I think of this as a core exercise. Your core is your abs, your spinal erectors, your obliques, and your glutes. They all come together to help stabilize your spine. So the single leg hip thrust winds up being a great exercise and a versatile exercise for a lot of populations. Let's get into how to do it. So let's get into how we set up for our single leg hip thrust. And to set up for this, we first have to understand our standard hip thrust. Your real quick primer on how we're setting up for our standard hip thrust. We're gonna use a bench. We can also use a chair. Even your couch can work for this. And we're gonna think about getting our shoulder blades fully on the bench. You wanna keep them there, and you wanna think about squeezing your shoulder blades, even driving your elbows into the bench a little bit. That'll work as long as we're doing body weight, which is what we're doing here. The other key thing I'm trying to do, I want to make sure my shins are perpendicular to the ground as I drive up into my hip thrust. So I want to make sure that they're not, if I'm too tight on myself, I'm not going to get a whole ton of range of motion. If I'm too far out, I'm also not going to really incorporate my glutes as much. So I want to try to find a nice, good 90-degree angle when I'm in that top position. I'm keeping my abs nice and tight when I'm in this position. Now, once we get into the single leg aspect of things, all we're gonna do, you'll notice I have a slightly wide stance when I'm doing a bilateral hip thrust. That's gonna give me a little more power, a little bit more stability. But when we go single leg, I'm gonna bring my legs together, and then I'm gonna take one of my legs. All I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove it from the ground. Now, what I wanna think about doing, I want to think about the top position of my single leg hip thrust. So when I'm in this top position, think of this as a good runner's position. So my foot is dorsiflex. I'm essentially 90 degrees at this knee, and I'm driving this knee up high, and I want to maintain that as I do my single leg hip thrust. So this is the finish of my single leg hip thrust, and I want to maintain all of that tension in that off leg. Granted, my planted leg is the leg where I'm really focusing on my glute, but I get a lot of benefit by keeping this leg in essentially the top position of my runner's stride and understanding that tension. The other thing I want to think about is keeping my hips square to the ceiling. So I don't want to tilt to one way, I don't want to get lax the other way, but I want to keep this square to the ceiling. I'm using this as an anti-rotational exercise for my abs as well. From there, the single leg hip thrust is nice and simple. I'm gonna lower back down to the ground, pause for a split second, think about looking forward as you do this, and try to look forward the entire time. And then from that position, I'm gonna squeeze down on my glute, and I'm driving back into the top of that runner's stride. Get a good squeeze. Think about a 1 to 2 second pause on the top of every rep, and all you're doing is focusing on really squeezing that glute at the top of each rep. That's all we're focusing on. The thing we want to avoid, and it's actually easier to avoid when we're doing the single leg version of this move, is we want to avoid arching our back. So I don't want to come up and try to sort of excessively overextend, but I'm keeping my abs nice and tight, and then driving into the top position every single time. It's a great move that you can do anywhere, whether you're at home, whether you're in your hotel. You have a lot of different options for where you can do the single leg hip thrust, and that's why it's such a great and versatile exercise for your glutes. If you have some load, if we want to add a little bit of challenge, we can grab a dumbbell or even a kettlebell, and we can utilize that. It gets a little bit tricky, but it's a good way to add a little bit of challenge and start to get a little bit of load. So I'm gonna set the dumbbell on my hip, get into position. I'm gonna have to stabilize sometimes with one arm or two, depending on the load. And I'm just thinking about keeping this right above my hip and keeping it high on my hip. Then I'll get into my position, again, thinking about dorsiflexing that foot, finding a good runner stance, and then I can drive up with a little bit of load. So that's a loaded version of the single leg hip thrust. Again, this is great if you're in the hotel gym and you don't have the barbells you might want. You can't necessarily throw 225, 315 on a barbell and really, really aggressively attack your hip thrust. You can attack this version. You get a little bit of load, you get a lot of athletic benefit, and we're gonna smoke our core and glutes all at once. So that is your single leg hip thrust. And there are so many ways that we can wind up using this exercise. And again, it works for so many populations. If you are somebody who's a beginner, think about learning the classic hip thrust first, master that, understand what glute squeeze really feels like, but then you can graduate to this version. We're getting unilateral, we're gonna isolate one glute, and you're also gonna get that really, really good core benefit. It's a really, really good move that you can throw into any of your body weight circuits. Think about doing 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps per side. Because we're doing it body weight, and because you might be putting it in a standard body weight circuit, you don't need a big rest period. You can literally do 10 to 12 reps on the left side, 10 to 12 reps on the right side, and work back and forth for your 3 sets. It's a nice way to finish your body weight workouts after you've done your more multi-joint exercises, say your push-ups, your squats, your lunges. Then come to the single leg glute bridge and you can finish up very nicely for that. If you are somebody who's a little bit more advanced, we can still find use for this move. You might be strong enough to really, really attack very heavy classic hip thrusts, and you should do that. We can use the single leg hip thrust as an activation and a warm-up. It's a great way to get your glutes firing and get them warmed up before squats and deadlifts and a lot of your other heavy leg exercises. And that's especially beneficial if you have an office job and your glutes aren't really firing throughout the day. This is a great way to get things started. If you're a runner, you can also use this as a warm-up too. The more that we're training and creating powerful hip extension, the better it's gonna make us, whether we are a runner, whether we're a basketball player. Any athlete can benefit from this move as an activation. In that situation, I'm less concerned with how many reps you're doing and more concerned with quality of contraction and just waking up the glutes. So I might put it on time. Think about going for 30 seconds one side, 30 seconds on the other, then take like a minute of rest, really feel your glutes, really make sure that we're getting good quality contractions. You're not trying to burn yourself out, you're just trying to wake up your glutes. Either way, the single leg hip thrust is an exercise worth understanding and keeping in your back pocket, because you never know when you're gonna travel, and when you need that glute pump, this is the move that you can take with you.